Hello, I am Kimmy with On William Street, and we are back for our third block in our online quilting bee skill builder quilt along that we are doing throughout the course of the year. If you're just joining us, definitely head to our blog post where we kind of have information about what we're doing and what's going on. If you've been sewing along, welcome back, and we are ready to get started with our third block and third technique that we are going to learn this year. So this month we are really focusing on flying geese, and we're going to make a really cute star in a star block out of these flying geese blocks. So the fabric pieces that we're going to need for this quilt, so first off I'm going to show you the whites. We're going to need one large white square at 10 1/4 inches. We're going to need one smaller white square at 5 3/4 inches. We're going to need 4 white squares at 5 inches. And then we're also going to need 4 white squares at 2 3/4 inches. After the whites, we're going to need one yellow square. This is going to be for the center of the block, and so this one's at 5 inches. We're going to need 4 gray squares at 3 1/8 inches, and then we're going to need 2 of our dark green and 2 of our light green, and these are going to all be at 5 3/8 inch squares. So go ahead and get all of your squares cut, and then come on back and we'll get them sewn together. Okay, so for this block, for the flying geese, we're going to have 2 sets of flying geese. The first set is going to have, the goose part is going to be white, and that's actually going to be on all of them, but the smaller set is going to be surrounded by the gray, and then we're going to have our larger set, and that's going to be surrounded by our 2 greens. So if you want more information on how to customize your flying geese for other patterns, we did just post a video on that, and it gives you all the measurements and everything that you need as well. So definitely check that out if you want more information. So to make a 4 at a time, no waste flying geese, this is our absolute favorite method because it does not waste any fabric, and we are all about that. So you're going to take your larger block. This is the 5 3/4 inch block, and we're taking our little gray squares, and we're going to place them on 2 squares on opposite corners, and we're just lining it up right along the edges. We're going to take a ruler and a pen. We are using a heat erase fabric pen. You don't necessarily need to for these. This line is going to be cut, so even just a pencil totally works. And then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides of that. If you do need to make sure those don't fall off, you can stick a pin. If it gets too much bigger than this, I usually will stick a pin in both of those pieces just so that they stay in place while I'm sewing. So we're going to sew down one side with the 1/4 inch seam. And then when you get to the end, you can just pick it up and flip it around. You don't need to worry about stopping and trimming. After you finish sewing, then we will trim on that line that we drew just from corner to corner. Then we're going to go ahead and iron these. Make sure that when you're ironing it, you go ahead and just iron both of these points pointing up, and that's going to help us when we're lining it up later. Now that we've ironed those up, we're going to take our second set of the gray blocks, and we're going to line those up on the opposite corner that we haven't sewn yet. We're going to copy this for both sets of our flying geese, and then just the same thing, draw a line from corner to corner. And then sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides of those as well. After we've sewn both of those, again, we're just going to trim right on that line. We're going to press those up, and then that's going to give us our first set of flying geese. And those are the ones that are going to go on the inside of our block. And then we're going to be ready to make our larger one. So we're going to go ahead and grab our large square. This is the 10 1/4 inch square. When we do this one, we just need to make sure that we start out with the 2 light greens on opposite corners, and then we're going to add the 2 dark greens on the other side. So go ahead and put that one on there, and I'm going to need a bigger ruler to get all the way across that block. And then we're just going to repeat, do the same thing and sew on either side, and then trim and add our two dark greens as well to that block. I'm ready to trim that seam now, and then we will add on the dark greens for the opposite corners, and we're just going to repeat the same thing to finish out these two sets of flying geese, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and lay out our block and put it all together. All right, so similar to our first star block, doing it this way, you are going to end up with two sets of mirror blocks. So when we're laying this out, we're going to have the light greens next to each other and the dark greens next to each other. So we're just going to make sure that the two matching blocks go on opposite sides of the block. But we are ready to go ahead and lay this block out. To lay this block out, we're going to start with the center star, and then we'll go ahead and build on the bigger star around it. So we're going to put our yellow block in the middle, and we're going to have one of our gray flying geese on each side, and then our little white squares go in the corners. So to put this together, we're going to sew the top three together, the middle three together, the bottom three together, and then we'll go ahead and put them all together. So the thing that we really want to be focusing on this month especially is these points on our flying geese. We want to make sure that we're not running over them. So how I'm going to make sure that I'm doing that is when I line these up and sew, I'm going to line it up and sew it so that I have the goose on top. That's going to allow me to make sure that when I'm sewing my 1/4 inch seam, it's hitting right where those 2 points come together. And if I have it just to the side, don't go over the top because you're going to lose a little tiny bit with your thread. I want it to be hitting just right there, right next to it. Get my finger out of the way so you can kind of see where I'm going. I'm aiming for right here. That's where I want my 1/4 inch seam to hit. That way when I iron it out, that point is not going to be cut off, and you're going to see that nice, perfect little point there on our flying goose. So put those on top and make sure that you're sewing. So you're going to want to flip it around for the other direction so that it's always on top when you're sewing those together. So let's go ahead and get all of those 3 parts sewn together and make our little first center star. Now as I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and sew all 3 pieces together first, then take them over and iron them, and then I will come back and sew the rows together. And that's just going to save a little bit of time. We love little time savers. You could also chain piece these rows together if you're comfortable chain piecing. I'm just going to do the tops and bottoms really quick, and then I'm going to show you exactly what I mean on sewing that seam with that flying goose. So I'm going to put my yellow piece here, and like I said, I'm going to make sure that my flying goose is on top of it. And as I'm sewing along, just really watch that 1/4 inch seam so that the center, because I've got this 1/4 inch foot, I want to make sure that my center goes right over that line that I drew. Flip it around and do the next one. So on this, if you're noticing as you're getting towards that flying geese that that point isn't quite exactly on a 1/4 inch seam, you have a couple choices. You can either be okay with cutting the top of that point off, or you can fudge your 1/4 inch seam just a little bit. My guess is if you're fudging your 1/4 inch seam, it's only going to be a hair of a change, and you're not going to really notice it in the finished block width. But you can see here that that seam that we've sewn across hits right on top, and then when we fold that out, we haven't lost that seam at all. Also, when I iron these, I'm going to make sure that I iron them in, because that's going to help things lay flatter and help that point be visible as well. All right, to add the top and the bottom rows on, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure that the flying goose is on top so that I can see it. But the other areas that I have to watch too, of course, are the seams, the corners where they line up. So we actually, because we went ahead and ironed them towards the yellow and then ironed these ones toward the white, I can nest those seams. So you're just going to put them right next to each other, and I just kind of like to wiggle them just a little bit, and that kind of just puts them right in so that they're touching. And then I'm going to make sure to add a pin in that seam. Do the same thing on this side. And then we're also going to be looking at the outside points. That's another spot where we might lose that point on that outside flying goose. So make sure that everything's nice lined up. And I'm going to stick a pin there as well, so that we have everything where we want it to be. And then I will go ahead and add and sew that side on.
Now we've got this center star done, and this now becomes our center square. So just like the yellow square before, this is now acting as our yellow square. So we're going to go ahead and put the 4 white squares in the corners, and then our flying geese around the center. So just want to make sure, like I said, the matching blocks we're going to put on opposite corners so that we have the same pattern layout with our 4 star points. And then we're going to just repeat the exact same thing we just did. So these 3 together, these 3 together, these 3 together, and then sew our rows together again, making sure the flying geese go on top so that we can make sure that we don't cut off any of our points. Now our quilt block is all done, and we have this really fun star in a star block. So if you are doing a quilt of all, if you want to do a quilt of just this one, this block is really, really cute and scrappy fabrics and doing all sorts of fun little scrappy stars. So that is an idea as well. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you don't miss any of our videos. Also, you can sign up for the newsletter. That's going to get you a reminder whenever we post a new video, and you'll make sure to see when we posted all of our new blocks for the rest of the year. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, see all the things that we're working on there as well. And if you are as you're making the quilt and finishing your blocks, if you are posting them on social media, we're using hashtag #OnlineQuiltingBee2020. That way we can all follow along and cheer each other on and see how much we're improving and see all the fun things that we're learning. So we're so happy that you are here and sewing along with us, and we can't wait to see what you're making, and we will see you next week. Bye.